in honor of former Cleveland Guardians reliever Toothless Nick Whitgren. Welcome into the 62nd episode of Cleveland Sports Realm. I am Kevin. Alongside is my good friend and co-host, as you know, if you're a loyal listener, Jerome Pedikauskas, doing a fantastic job. In the last 61 episodes, we expect him to do a great job in this one as well. And then behind the camera, producer Eric, as always. You cannot see him, but we can. Jerome, how are we doing? A little bit of housekeeping up front. We are recording Wednesday night, so only about 12 hours prior to this actually releasing. So we should be pretty much up to date on everything. How are we doing this Wednesday evening?
Not too bad. I think I have missed 2 episodes due to illness.
Yeah.
So I think I've been here for, this will be number 60. But the guy who's actually never missed an episode, you and I you've missed 2, I believe.
I think I've missed 2 as well. But yeah, the guy behind the camera never misses one.
No, he's
because,
never.
Quite frankly, we can't do it without him.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
No, the guy's never missed one. So I'm doing okay, all things considered. There's a lot going on in the NFL coaching world. The baseball team, nobody told them it was the off season.
Right.
And the basketball team has won 4 out of 5, so we'll give them that.
Yeah, we'll
and
give
of
them
course,
their
the
flowers
one that they didn't win was when I was there on Sunday.
Ugh,
so I think we're doing okay. The college football team, we'll get to that. That was a debacle.
Yep.
The pro football team, Jimmy Haslam gave his annual speech. Well, it hadn't been given in quite a while. But
hey, you want to start there? You want to start with the Brownies tonight?
I think we will. But before we get into the Jimmy thing, which, by the way, my point was he gave that speech, biannually for the first 10 years he owned the team. And then we hadn't heard it in a while. But it really didn't change 6 years later, and it's still the same Jimmy speech. So we'll get to him in a second.
Yep.
I think we should start with I thought, you know what? The hell with the draft position. I'm glad the football team did win 2 in a row at the end of the year, especially now knowing that we do. The Kev's gone. I think those guys did it for him. I feel like the writing was on the wall in the building. I'm not in the building anymore. Right. I think the writing was on the wall. And I'm glad they did it for him. And he showed more emotion those last 2 division games than he did the previous 6 years combined. So good for him. Good for those guys. And then, of course, the greatest, contrary to what some of our co-hosts last week, Rob, said, the greatest, the single season sack record, which I think the more and more I've thought about this, does not have an asterisk. I
don't think so either. I used to. I was actually on your brother's side last week of this, and I had said it in weeks prior that I thought that it would come with an asterisk, if I can say that correctly. Can be a little bit of a tongue twister on its own. But, yeah, especially with the lead that he had on everybody and where he was projected to be at the end of the year. I mean, we were talking 25, 26, maybe even 27 sacks by week 13 probably we were talking. And then obviously, as Myles Garrett tends to do throughout his career, he did slow up at the end, but he did get the sack that mattered most. And it was cool that he got it on Joe Burrow, like a bigger name quarterback. And
the guy he sacked the most in his career.
Yeah, the guy that he sacked the most in his career. Great point out of you. And I was actually watching the game with friend of the show, Robbie Becker, who had been on the show a couple weeks ago. And we were talking, it was halfway through the 4th quarter when the sack happened. And him and I were talking, this is such a Browns thing. We're talking up this sack record that they don't even have yet. And he's going to come up short. And he's literally the next play he gets the sack. And we were going nuts.
So I think the reason that I don't believe that it has an asterisk, and by the way, I thought the way that Strahan handled it very much with grace on Fox. I don't know if you saw that clip of him discussing it and talking about it.
I just saw that he had basically said, well, I still hold the 16-game record and he holds the 17, basically.
Yeah, but and those guys were busting his balls on the the Fox desk. And basically, I thought also, like Shannon Sharp said, this is the amount of games that are on the schedule now. There's 17. He did it in a regular NFL season. Do you think, and I used this point last week, I don't remember if I did it on the podcast or off the podcast. Either way, I'll use it again. If I apologize if I'm repeating myself. All those records that Jim Brown had in 12 games when all these other guys have broken them. Eric Dickerson, for rushing yards. Emmitt Smith at one point. All these guys. Do you think that Jim Brown was pissed off that they got 4, in a lot of instances, 4 more games to do it when he played. Used to be a 12-game schedule. Yeah, I'm sure he was, but at the same time, that's the way the league adjusted. Yeah. We've now moved on to a 17-game schedule. And I think what also helps Myles Garrett, and Shannon Sharp pointed this out on him and Chad Ochocinco's very entertaining podcast, if I have to say so myself. He pointed this out. He said, listen, Shannon said, look how few snaps he had versus what Strahan had and versus what Watt had.
Yeah, I saw that Garrett had gotten it. It was over 200, but it wasn't, or I'm sorry, it was over 100 less, but it wasn't 200 less. It was like 150 less snaps that he had gotten the record in. So that's where I was looking at it, and I was like, okay, this does not come with an asterisk.
And if you have legends, NFL Hall of Famers and legends like Shannon Sharp and Michael Strahan accepting it, then why we, the nobody fans who've never stepped on an NFL field, why can't we accept it for what it is?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was cool too, because it seemed like genuinely nobody, to your point, Jerome, genuinely nobody really did care that it was done in 17 games. You know, there was talk amongst the city about when he does it, if he does it against the Bengals, is it really going to, are we going to look at it in the same light as we look at the Strahan and the TJ Watt sack record? And as soon as it happened, nobody cared. Like, literally nobody cared. It was like, okay, our guy now is at the top of the throne of the sack leaders.
Right. And the other thing with that, too, is, we talked about this and people pushed back on it. The Steelers were hell-bent more so about stopping him from getting that record against them than winning the game.
I've thought about this. I think if they play that Steelers game 100 times, I don't know if he gets a sack.
No, they basically...
They were so adamant about rolling Rodgers outright, running away from Garrett, quick passes. Like, I don't think there was a shot.
Rodgers was releasing the ball in under a second sometimes. And again, I pointed this out on last week's show. Again, sorry for repeating myself. Rodgers should have had 4 or 5 intentional groundings in that game from throwing it to point blank nobody just because Myles Garrett was somewhere near in the vicinity. And as much as Cincinnati had said, during the week last week, Burrow said, if it happens, it happens. And this and that, they kind of sold out for a good while there, too, to make sure it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So they weren't quite as aggressive, maybe is the word I'm looking for, in their approach as Pittsburgh was. They were still pretty damn adamant about it not happening. And he got it, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And something I want to call out, too, is my oldest brother, Mike, was actually at the game with a couple friends of his. And he had told me that the place was pretty cool. Even Bengals fans were up in the stands high-fiving each other, that they got to see that they got to see that in person. And he had sent me a picture. It'll actually be in our Instagram post of this episode. I will include that picture because you can see 2 Bengals fans actually high-fiving in it. But just an awesome moment. And I'm glad that there's something that we can look at because this is what we've been talking about basically since like week 9 or 10 is the rest of the year we're watching for Shedeur Sanders to see if he's the guy and to see if Myles Garrett breaks the sack record. And we got the sack record, so
yeah, absolutely
can't complain.
And you know what? Again, I don't care about the draft position. I've made that very clear on this show. I'm glad that they finished the year with 2 division wins because they had not won a game in the division up until that point. And right now in the immediate, sure, yeah, you could look in draft position and be like, yeah, well, the Browns kind of debunked, and they slid down from 2 and slid to 6 or whatever, It
really didn't hurt them too much, though, to win. I mean, to win both the games it did because they'd be looking at the 1 or 2 pick, probably the number 2 pick. But winning this last game, I saw if they would have lost, they would be drafting like 4 or 5.
So who cares?
Now they're drafting
That's why
6.
I'm glad they went down there, got the
Sure.
division win. And I know this is just me being kind of petty, but when people go back, and you look at the all-time history of the Cleveland Browns, and let's say 20 years from now, in 2046, you're like, man, it just looks a lot better. It really does. And I know it sounds stupid, but to me, it will eventually to say, hey, that was a 3 and a 5 win season instead of looking at the history of all time of the Browns and saying they had back-to-back 3-win seasons. It just looks better. It will eventually. I know right now people are probably like, that is, people who are listening to this are probably like, that is so bleeping stupid. But trust me, when your kids and grandkids are looking, the Browns have back-to-back 3-win seasons. They had 3. Okay, they got a little bit better there. They won 5 games that year.
Yeah.
To me, eventually...
Ooh,
excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You all right?
Sorry. Not right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not right now. It will make a difference at all. But eventually, I think in the grand scheme of things in Browns history, it makes a slight difference to me, and I think other people as well.
Yeah, honestly, I'll be honest with you. It doesn't. I don't really look at it too different, to be honest with you, because I mean, you look back at those. I mean, quite frankly, from like 2008 to 2013, it was just a bunch of 4-12, 5-11, and the occasional 3-13. And then even throughout that era, you never really looked at, like, I don't look at that and say, oh, we went from 4-12 to 5-11, we got a little bit better. Or from 3-13 to 4-12, I don't look at it too much of that. I still look at it like, oh, they got a couple more wins, but it was the same old Browns, basically, is kind of how I look at it when I look back at those early 2010 teams. That's how I'm going to look at it in this era, honestly. When I look back at this, I'm going to look at it the same way. It was back-to-back kind of crappy years. Now, how they transition into next year, I mean, elephant in the room here. Obviously, Stefanski's gone now as a result of this entire season. Barry keeps his job. Now, you and I have talked a little bit, not a lot, honestly, which, believe it or not, over the last few days, we've only talked a little bit about it. Where do you stand on them keeping Stefanski and firing Barry? Or, excuse me, keeping Barry and firing Stefanski. I apologize.
So I have been saying for weeks on this show, and every week we come in to do this show, I thought they either should have both went or both stayed. Last week, I was kind of on the opinion that they were both going to go. I think I did state that.
Yeah,
and
you did.
And you were, and I think you had stated they were both going to stay.
That's exactly right.
We were both wrong.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, they're somewhere in the middle on that.
So as I'm reading, I'm dialed in, to all the Brown stuff, and as you are too. I don't miss too much that goes on with the orange and brown. And over the weekend, you start hearing traction. You just kind of get the feeling. And then the way that Kevin kind of talked on Friday, he never says a damn thing worth value in his press conferences. And you kind of, he's getting a little more open, basically. Like the robot finally wasn't a robot. It was a human being in there. And it came out Sunday in his presser. And the way that he celebrated that win with those guys on Sunday, they celebrated like that was a game of consequence. Like, man, if they won that game, they were going in and Cincinnati was staying home. That's the way they celebrated. And now I'm thinking those guys all had an inkling, and they did that for Kevin. And I'm glad.
I think so too.
I really am glad, knowing how we are now here the following Wednesday. I'm glad that they led that game-winning drive and got out of there with an Andre Schmidt game winner for Kevin other than anything else.
Yeah, I'm glad they came out of there with a win too, and I'm actually I am so irate with how the Browns handled this entire process with where this regime is, or what the regime was to what they plan on doing this upcoming offseason. I'm kind of at a loss for words. We've done this whole shotgun marriage bull crap in the past, and it never works out. Kevin Stefanski, people forget this, was part of the hiring team that hired Andrew Barry. So now you bring in Andrew Barry, obviously, in 2020. We are where we are now. And you decide that the guy that mortgaged your entire future, basically the entire 6 years that this regime was here, you mortgaged that, the 3 years of the draft capital, all the money that you've spent on one guy in the Albatross, who it's been reported, and you and I had theorized this, that Stefanski did not want Watson because Watson never fit the Stefanski mold ever. It was just a superstar quarterback that they thought that they were a piece away from at the time.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Notice how quickly Kevin got all his mouthpieces out there to let everybody know. Within 30 minutes of his firing, his mouthpieces were out there letting everybody know that he was not responsible for that.
Right. Which, I mean, he can't say anything like that during his time here, so that's when his mouthpieces come out. But I truly believe that. Like, I don't know about you, Jerome. I truly believe that Kevin Stefanski was not the motivating factor or the driving force behind the Albatross trade. I really don't think he was. It comes back to Andrew Barry, and this is my point right here. So they're going to go out this hiring cycle, and we'll probably talk about some of these candidates here in a few minutes, but they're going to go out this hiring cycle. They're going to hire somebody. I can almost guarantee you that next offseason they're going to fire Andrew Barry, and you're going to be stuck with a head coach here that either you're going to have to make a decision. He's going to be a one and done like you've done with Chudzinski and what you've done with Kitchens before. he's either going to be a one and done, or you're going to force another shotgun marriage in back-to-back years, hire the GM, make him draft players that fit that coach, and then one of them or 2 years later, they're going to be fired again. I can totally see by 2029 them going after their third regime right now.
So I have a theory, and I don't know. I have nothing that tells me. I have no sources that have told me this theory, but I do have a theory.
Okay.
Did Jimmy keep Andrew because I think Jimmy kept Andrew because Jimmy was very comfortable with Andrew. And, it's hard in this business to find people that you really, really trust. And I'm not saying he deserved it or earned it. Jimmy Haslam trusts Andrew Berry a lot. People also forget Andrew Berry was here for 3 years.
Yeah, under Dorsey.
Even before that.
Yeah, under Sushi.
He was under Sushi Brown. Sushi Brown was the president of football operations. Andrew Berry was the executive vice president / general manager.
Right.
For Sushi Brown. Okay? He was here for 3 years. He went to go be an assistant GM under Howie Roseman in Philly. Learned a lot. The Haslams couldn't wait to bring him back in 2020. I don't even remember them interviewing anybody else, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't remember. That's like 6 years ago now.
I remember... Actually, that's false. I do remember George Payton getting an interview, who's now the Broncos.
I do remember that. I actually thought that's what the combo was going to end up being, actually. Just because of the Vikings ties.
I know, and say what you want about the Browns front office, it's kind of respected in some weird way around the league. Like, they've had several assistant GMs get poached for other jobs who have worked under Andrew Berry. I don't know. People probably don't want to hear that right now, but it is the truth. So it's a highly respected front office league-wide. I also wonder, who's the one person besides Kevin Stefanski who's not here anymore?
DePodesta.
Thank you. I think I've come to the theory that I believe he's the entire architect of the Deshaun Watson trade.
DePodesta?
Yes.
Oh, I disagree entirely on that.
I've come to
He's
that.
the Moneyball guy.
I know, but something tells me that he has a lot more to do with that. I almost think if Andrew Berry had as much responsibility as we all think he did, he'd have been fired. I just don't understand how you would let him stay if he had as much responsibility as we all think he did.
I think it's probably because Berry and Haslam were both in cahoots over this Watson deal.
I think DePodesta had a hell of a lot more to do with it than anybody thinks he did. And that's why
I just don't see that. I just don't see that with what his mantra was with Moneyball and basically getting players with similar stats at discounts, and I don't see them going out and spending what they spent on the Albatross with DePodesta being the driving force behind it. I just don't see that happening.
Maybe DePodesta wasn't the one who decided on the fully guaranteed contract, but as far as being the architect of the person who decided that Deshaun Watson was who was best for the Cleveland Browns moving forward, I think that was all Paul. That's my theory. And the reason I think that is because Andrew Berry's still here. Jimmy Haslam cited some very strange examples as to why he's still here, because he was point blank asked. And his number one reason was, he started with the draft class, which we all knew was going to be the reason. Number two, he went to the Tyson Campbell trade.
Yep.
Number three, he went to Andre Schmidt.
And Malik Collins was number 4.
And Malik Collins was number 4. And those are all true. Those are all valid reasons, in my opinion, that Jimmy gave.
I'm going to give some pushback here, and it's not to you.
But wait a minute.
Okay.
Jimmy, he's had a really good 12 months. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. His last 12 months, his body of work's been really good. The previous 5 years, though, the body of work's very questionable.
Yeah, so I mean...
And so I just think it's a what have you done for me lately business, and Jimmy might have got the wool pulled over his eyes by Andrew Berry's extremely successful and well-executed last 12 months.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate, but I don't know how, and this isn't pushing back to you, it's just pushing back to Haslam's argument here. Like, I don't know how you just forgive the previous 5 years. How do you forgive the John Johnson contract, the Juan Thornhill contract, the Jedrick Wills draft pick, the Deshaun Watson trade, obviously. I mean, we can go on this, giving up on Baker Mayfield. And yeah, obviously, like Baker is what he is. He's exactly what he was in Cleveland and Tampa right now. You get really high highs and really low lows with Baker, and they're out of the playoffs as a result of it. We were talking about this dude as an MVP candidate in Week 7. I haven't heard about this guy in two and a half months. So he is what he is now. My whole thing is when you're looking at the trio of that hierarchy with Haslam, Barry, and Stefanski, basically in that order, Kevin Stefanski is better at coaching than Barry is at general managing and better at coaching than Haslam is at owning. So I don't know how you make this guy, the 2-time coach of the year, the scapegoat. Yeah, he had back-to-back pretty horrendous years. What did they come out? What was it, 7 and...
8 and 24 is what he came in
8
at.
and 24.
Or sorry.
No, 7 and 25.
5 and 3 is 8. And then you figure 14 plus 12 is, I'm terrible.
26?
Yeah, so it's 8 and 26 is what it is.
8 and 26? Okay, so yeah, he was horrible over the last 2 years.
Excuse our bad on air live math.
I don't have my calc out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was horrible the last 2 years, but look at what he's put on the field. Look at what is on the field for him right now. Andrew Barry had he's had 6 years to prepare for the deterioration of this offensive line. There's nothing there. He's had 6 years to put a receiving core together. Nothing there. 6 years to find a quarterback. Still nothing. He's been fine at the running back position. Obviously, he inherited 2 good running backs. He also drafted 2 good running backs to replace him. I've got no issue there. Defense, obviously the defense is absolutely phenomenal, so I have no issues there. But when you're looking at the offense and what's holding this team back, Andrew Barry, the 2 most important positions, I'll even exclude receiver on this, the 2 most important positions on the offense are quarterback and left tackle, and just basically the offensive line as a whole, and you don't have any of those spots answered. It sounds like, based off of what Carly Teller tweeted on X, like it looks like Wyatt Teller might not be back next year.
Well, he might now be.
Well,
Kevin's gone.
Maybe he is. Joe Bitonio, the way that he was talking about Kevin Stefanski, he's had him as a coach for 6 out of the last 12 years or 6 out of his 12-year career. So half of his career, Kevin Stefanski was his head coach, was crying talking about the end of the season. I think it had more so to do with he thinks that's probably his last game of football. But he's not coming back. We've got no left tackle. Center's still a massive question. Poach is coming off that injury. Whippler didn't look good. And then right tackle, Jack Conklin's one of the worst contracts that we've ever extended. And then Dawan Jones can never stay healthy. So I don't know why Andrew Barry gets a pass for all that based off of one good draft, which, by the way, 2 of the picks he botched. I think it was a good draft for the other 4 picks, but...
Well, I think... I don't know. I don't know what... That's the way Jimmy wanted to do it. And, again, I think it's so hard to find people you trust in this business, and the Haslams were through so many people, and he really, really trusts Andrew Barry. Andrew Barry has now been here for 9 of his 13 years of ownership.
And would they take over 12?
They took over halfway through 2012, so
okay.
Andrew Barry has been here for longer than any other executive, any other coach, so he really trusts Andrew Barry.
But look at where the team's been this entire, I don't know how you can trust somebody who's just putting up dog crap for you.
And by the way, I'm not saying, just to make it clear and get it on the record, I'm not saying that I see it how Jimmy sees it. I'm just trying to put it through the eyes. I'm trying to...
Yeah, you're speaking for Jimmy in theory.
I'm projecting what I think Jimmy thinks.
Correct.
In D2.
I'm just saying, this is based off of what your brother was saying last week when we had Rob on the show, nothing. I am at the point now where it is hard for me to be optimistic about anything that this team does. Anything. Everything they've tried to do has never worked. And throughout the last almost 15 years now of the Haslams owning the team, we've had nothing as a product. We've had 2 winning seasons. 2 winning seasons in 15 years, almost, of them owning this team. It's completely unacceptable. And yeah, you're right, Jerome. They had their typical, what was their biannual press conference of talking about, well, this fan base they deserve better. We're going to give them better. It's been 15 years, man. And the only 2 seasons that we've seen had Kevin Stefanski at head coach, and you just let him go. And I'm telling you right now, if my worst case scenario happens, if somehow Baltimore brings Kevin Stefanski in, we're going to have nightmares watching Kevin Stefanski win a Super Bowl in Baltimore. We're going to have nightmares over that. If Baltimore poaches him.
So I think, talking about the coaching carousel now, if you missed it, Kevin Stefanski was at Cleveland Hopkins Airport yesterday on one of the United flights heading to Newark, and that's because he had dinner with Joe Schoen last night, Giants general manager, and supposedly did an interview today. I thought Kevin Stefanski was a shoo-in for the Giants job. Everything in this whole hiring cycle got flipped on its head last night when Baltimore parted ways and ultimately fired John Harbaugh. And I had somebody down from Baltimore, a friend of mine, shout out Tanner Ambrose, told me they couldn't wait in Baltimore. The church bells were ringing, was the quote he texted me yesterday. The church bells were ringing to get rid of Harbaugh. They couldn't wait. Well, I know a lot of fan bases who want him. The New York Giants are salivating to get John Harbaugh, and I think that's where he ultimately is going to end up going. I know that people talk about here and the connection to their parents being from Cleveland. That's John and Jim's parents. I know John has talked about, the Cleveland Browns with almost great reverence, when he has spoken about them and, the various 18 years of playing them twice a year. So you figure how much he's played them 36 times.
Well, he's from Toledo. He grew up a Browns fan.
Exactly. And he's spoken with the Browns with great reverence. Do I think that the Browns will make a run on Harbaugh? I do. And I don't think he's going to choose to come here. I don't
think he will either.
I think he ultimately will be coaching Big Blue. I was adamant Kevin Stefanski will. Now the way I see this hiring cycle is I think Kevin Stefanski's going to end up with the Titans.
Okay. Cam Ward, young quarterback.
They have an interview scheduled with him. Either way, I know of the 6 openings that are jobs that are open. Kevin Stefanski will occupy one of them. It just won't be Cleveland. So
I think so too. Yeah. A scenario I really actually do want to see play out is I do want to see Kevin Stefanski head coaching the Las Vegas Raiders. I've come to that determination. That's what I want. They got obviously a young stud running back in Genti who had a great rookie year. Not what everybody thought he was going to have, but he still had a great rookie year. They've got the number 1 pick. They're going to draft a quarterback. You would imagine it's probably going to be Mendoza. They've already got a superstar tight end, which is what Kevin Stefanski loves. Like, they already have some of those pieces that make the Kevin Stefanski offense work. I think that would be a phenomenal fit, and I think it would be a phenomenal hire for Vegas going into next year, and it is something that I do want to see happen.
Can I push back on that big
Sure.
time? I'm curious to see how many established head coaches want to go work for Vegas. I don't think there's that many of them. Okay. I'll tell you a couple reasons why. One, what's your stability? They've had they make the Browns look like the Steelers with keeping coaches. They've had 6 coaches since 2021. So whoever goes there realizes the first time that they stub their toe, Mark Davis is going code red. He's firing you. Second of all, I don't know if an established head coach wants Tom Brady, and all due respect to Tom Brady, I think he is the greatest quarterback in NFL history. I think he might be the greatest player in NFL history. But what established coach wants to go there and have Tom Brady peering over their shoulder 24/7? You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. Oh, by the way, Tom Brady's never coached a down of football in his life. So if I'm an established coach, I am steering so far clear of the Las Vegas Raiders, you can't even begin to imagine.
What job do you think is more attractive, the Las Vegas job or the Cleveland job?
I would honestly say because of ownership and Mark Davis being such a buffoon and actually making Jimmy Haslam look a little competent, I would almost say the Cleveland job, because I think, and I think what ultimately is going to end up happening in this hiring cycle is the person who's interviewing tomorrow is going to be the Browns head coach. That's Jim Schwartz.
I like that transition out of you, actually, because that's starting to become my preferred. That's starting to become what I would like the Browns to do, and the only reason is because I do see Barry getting fired at the end of next year, and I just don't want to do the whole, we're going to do once again another shotgun marriage like I mentioned earlier and then transition in another year or two. Like, I would rather just say, hey, if Schwartz is our guy for this upcoming year and they have a good year, great, you keep rolling with it. If not, he was basically part of that regime anyway, and then you cut ties with the regime entirely, and then you go after a new one next offseason. That's starting to become my preferred preference only because I really do see Andrew Berry getting fired at the end of next year.
See, I'm not, and my reasoning is, I look at it like this. Look, sometimes guys get an opportunity to be a head coach, and then they fall, for all intents and purposes, they fall on their ass and fail.
Yeah.
And Jim Schwartz had one playoff year in 5 years running the Lions, or 6 years. I don't remember exactly. I was just looking at it before the show. I apologize. I can't remember exactly what it is. Either way, he had one playoff year running the Lions, and he had a couple other winning seasons, and ultimately, I believe he went 29-51. That was also, Jim Schwartz was fired after 2013. Jim Schwartz has done a lot since then. Jim Schwartz has ran the Bills defense for a couple of years. Jim Schwartz has ran a Super Bowl winning defense in Philadelphia for, I believe that was Peterson at the time. Jim Schwartz had some health problems where he was basically an advisor, senior defensive assistant for Vrabel. Once he knew his health got back in a row and he could be there every day. He was the hottest defensive coordinator candidate on the market. And I give the Browns credit at the time. Joe Woods was a travesty, and they pounced on him, and they got him, and they brought him here. And in my opinion, I've been watching the Browns since 99. Obviously, I was born in 97. I didn't see anything before that. These have been the three best Cleveland Browns defenses I've ever seen in my lifetime. The players really like them. You already got it there. Denzel Ward basically did his best, campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, he really could put a strong sales pitch for Jimmy Schwartz. Myles Garrett loves Jim Schwartz. So what's your strongest unit? It's your defense. Your two defensive leaders want this guy to be your head coach. Now, can I sit here and guarantee that Jim Schwartz will have a winning season like I could if they got John Harbaugh? No, because John Harbaugh did it in out of his 18 years, he did, I think, 14 playoff appearances or something. I can't guarantee that with Jim Schwartz, but I also could say, look how much he's done in the 12 years since he's been a head coach. There's a lot of good head coaches he's been around and learned things from, and maybe this time he'd do it a little bit different. And also to the people in the back who are saying Jim Schwartz is too old, you're all clamoring for John Harbaugh, who, by the way, is 4 years older than Jim Schwartz and will be 64 by the start of the season. So, Jim Schwartz, I don't think is too old either, for those who are arguing against that.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with age. I think what you're going to end up seeing, though, with the Browns is I think that they're going to be so dead set on they already have a great defense.
Which they do.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be so focused on that they already have a great defense. They're going to try to build this offense up this offseason, and I think that they're going to make it their point to go after an offensive-minded head coach, which unfortunately is the person that we just basically let go. But I think that that's what they're going to end up doing. I think they're going to be like, well, our defense is intact. Let's get somebody in here that can improve the offense, and then we'll go from there. Now, whether Jim Schwartz can stay on that coaching staff or not, I have absolutely no idea.
That's going to be up to the new coach.
Well, it seems like based off of what Haslam was saying, it seems like they might even force a shotgun marriage between the new head coach and Jim Schwartz, because Haslam already said he wants Schwartz to stay, basically.
Jim Schwartz is maybe the best assistant coach they've ever had on their staff.
I think you could even date that back to 99, to the return.
I mean, the thing that's crazy about the Browns is they've had a lot of really good assistant coaches. I mean, they really
of course,
have.
Kyle Shanahan.
Sure, Mike McDaniel, who at the time when he was hired was very respected. Brian Dable, who started Brian Dable and Kevin Stefanski kind of had similar arcs. They both came in hot as hell, coach of the year, their rookie year, playoffs, and then both just kind of went, boom, right after that.
Sure.
I mean, there's been multiple, so to me, if they hire Jim Schwartz, and that's kind of who I decided I would like. Now, if they can get Harbaugh, I think I would probably say Jim Schwartz, sorry.
Yeah, oh yeah, so would I. I mean, Harbaugh's number one, right? I mean, we all agree on that.
I think Harbaugh's one and Jim Schwartz is two. The bottom line is, and I know this is me being probably stuck in my ways and having a boomer opinion here, but I'm just going to shoot it from the hip. I don't want the hot young coordinator. I don't want this. I can't think of his name. This British guy. I don't mean to be, single him out. Who they put a request in from the Seahawks defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't want Chris Shula, who I'm convinced is literally only in this cycle because of he's worked with McVay and he's breathed McVay and him have breathed the same air, and his grandpa's Don Shula. Like, that's the only reason he's in this cycle. Like, I don't want somebody like that. Like, I want somebody who has done it before. And Jim Schwartz has, John Harbaugh has. Therefore, I want one of those two.
You know who else has? Jonathan Gannon.
I don't want him.
You know who else has? Robert Saleh.
I don't want him. I have no interest.
But they've got head coaching experience.
I understand that, but my parameters with Jonathan Gannon, he was kind of a disaster.
He was horrible, and Mary Kay Cabot is like strongly advocating for him, and I think it has solely to do with that he's from the area.
I was just gonna say
she referred to Jonathan Gannon as a quote unquote excellent choice, which for losing your last 9 games of the year, I don't know how you can be motivated with bringing him in here.
And also him getting fired. That it was just like Barry. That Monty Ossendorf out there was hired at the same time as he was, and he's getting to pick the new coach out there. What their owner did, Michael Bidwell, Arizona's, is very similar to what Jimmy did.
Yeah,
and chose to make the head coach the fall guy.
I actually wouldn't mind. Sorry to interrupt you, buddy.
I was done.
Okay, I actually don't mind. I wouldn't mind, I should say. This might even be my option number 2. Like, if they don't go Schwartz, who, like I've said, is my option 1 right now, and I will say it is.
Well, what about Harbaugh? He wouldn't be your 1?
Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
Harbaugh, then Schwartz, which I do realize that Schwartz, the reason I have him so high is because it is the path of least resistance, and it's basically the least risky of all of them. That's basically why he's at number 2. Number 3 would fall in. I honestly would not mind bringing Saleh in. And the only reason I say that is because I think New York was such a, pardon my French, shit show that I don't know if anybody was going to be succeeding in New York. The quarterback play there, horrendous. The skill players there, horrendous. The defense actually played pretty well while Saleh was there. And Saleh, obviously, coaching a phenomenal defense right now, again in San Francisco like he had previously before he was the New York Jets coach. I just think he's the polar opposite of Stefanski. He's defensive-minded. Stefanski's offensive-minded. Saleh gets in your face. He gets energetic. The team rallies around him because of his energy. Stefanski's very stoic. It's more so, I shouldn't even say stoic. It's more so even keel. But I think having that energy on the sideline would just be so much different. And if you are looking for something different, I think that's the guy that guy is. I think he's the polar opposite of Kevin Stefanski.
Well, I also give Saleh this. Like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, coaching, I don't care if it's basketball, baseball, football, hockey. Coaching in New York is different than coaching any other city in America. The microscope is up in your face, in your grill 24/7.
They're basically the Browns with more media. That's what the Jets are.
100%. And I think that's a very valid point by you. Like New York's a different beast. Players, coaches, all that. Saleh, for all we know, and I don't know this for a fact, but let's just give him the benefit of the doubt here. Could have been building his program the way he wanted it with Joe Douglas. And then when a legendary Hall of Fame quarterback decides this is where he wants to play, everything changes.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what happened to Saleh.
Yep.
And I think, Aaron Rodgers came in there, flexed his muscles,
Took one snap.
Steamrolled the organization, took one snap, and it was a disaster. And then he was stuck with Zach Wilson as his quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Saleh was screwed in New York. So I wouldn't mind seeing him get another opportunity. I just don't think he would jump at this one. I don't know anybody who's jumping at this one. I think the most realistic outcome for this team is I think that they are going to end up hiring somebody that we really haven't even heard yet in this cycle. Like, I remember when we hired Pat Shurmur back in either 2010 or 2011, I had heard about him basically the day prior, and it was because there wasn't the Twitter notifications back in the day on there. I literally would go onto the Browns website and see if there were any updates, and I saw, this Rams offensive coordinator's coming in. So I think a Pat Shurmur type of hire is likely. I also think it's one of those, I remember I used to wake up to sports talk radio in the morning. It used to be my alarm. And I woke up to the news of Mike Pettin being hired. Had not heard about him really in the cycle prior. I think we're going to hear one of those random names that we haven't heard yet.
So that's disappointing because that means When Pat Shurmur was hired, it was because Mike Holmgren wanted to do his uncle a favor who had given him his first job, Fritz Shurmur, with the Packers. Okay. And then Mike Patton was their 85th choice, and nobody else wanted the job.
Yeah.
So you think they're in that point of view?
Yeah,
okay,
I do.
So let me ask you something then.
Yeah.
If you rank the current openings across the National Football
I gotta
League,
pull this up.
Is in your eyes, is the Cleveland Browns the worst opening?
I think it's definitely bottom. How many openings are there? 7?
So with Harbaugh now, I believe there's 7.
Okay, I would say it's easily bottom 3. I'm going to have to look at them, though. 1 second. NFL head coach openings. Let's see.
What do you think the best is?
I'm pulling that up right now.
In my opinion, it's probably Baltimore.
Baltimore, 100%. I mean, you're basically already... I mean, you join that team, and they're already basically a conference championship contender just by having Lamar.
Well, Lamar this last season was terrible, and there's some weird stuff going on there.
Where do you feel about the Falcons opening?
I think that's near the bottom. I mean, Arthur Blank just blanked Raheem Morris out of there. He had back-to-back 8-win seasons. I didn't think that, their GM should have went because he had been there for 6 or 7 years, but I didn't think Raheem deserved to be fired. And
I would say the bottom 3 are Browns, Cardinals, and Raiders in no particular order.
I would say for me, it's Raiders, Falcons, Cardinals.
I don't think the Falcons is that bad of one, though.
Only because I don't know. Arthur Blank's doing some odd stuff down there. I also think, to be perfectly honest with you, because Dart looks like a stud, I think the Giants is the second best opening in this cycle.
Yeah, I think it's top 3 for sure.
The only thing with that is Joe Shane's still there, who came in with Brian Dable. And Joe Shane has been not been a great general manager. If you think that the Browns shouldn't have kept Andrew Berry, if you're a Giants fan, you're like, why the hell is Joe Shane still there?
100%.
So that's the only one there. But mind you, whoever Harbaugh decides on, and I just read today, 9 teams have reached out. That means that there are 3 teams who have current head coaches who are
yeah, I think the Dolphins are definitely one of them.
I think the Bills. I think if McDermott
think the Bills?
I think if McDermott loses this game on Sunday, he is gone.
I do too.
He is gone.
I do too, but
even though he's the lower seed.
Yeah, but the lower seed doesn't always, especially in the NFL playoffs, the lower seed doesn't mean you're the worst team.
So I think McDermott,
because they got the Jaguars.
I think the
you
Dolphins,
got to beat the Jags.
And then here's my mystery team who probably inquired on Harbaugh. I think, judging they just fired both their coordinators, and there's apparently a war brewing between the front office and Dan Quinn, I think the Commanders were the other team that has a coach right now who reached out.
Okay, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. What do you think about the rumors? I saw that there was a rumor that the Ravens were potentially enamored with pairing Cliff Kingsbury with Lamar Jackson. I think that would be one of the biggest fumbles in organization history, would be to fire John Harbaugh to pursue Cliff Kingsbury.
I think Cliff Kingsbury is an outstanding offensive coordinator.
I'm
not sure why he's getting this much head coach traction.
Yeah, neither do I, especially with what happened in Arizona.
He was a disaster in Arizona as a head coach. I think his job is good enough as a coordinator. I don't know. To me, again, the Browns supposedly are going to start their process tomorrow as this gets released with Jim Schwartz and Tommy Rees. And Daryl Ryder, I thought, from 92.3 The Fan, Browns beat reporter, made a very valid point today. Many times in the past, the Browns have interviewed head coaching candidates and eventually brought them back as coordinators for that upcoming season. I think that's what this is for Tommy Rees, because if you read the tea leaves, Andrew Berry sounded like during his presser that Jim Schwartz had a legitimate chance at it. Versus Tommy, he kept saying, well, he's a very well-respected as a coordinator in league circles. I think that they're laying out a plan right now. Look, if we hire Jim and Jim wants you as his OC, can we give you the full-time OC job? Do we trust you enough? And Tommy also can consider his own options, because I think if the Browns decided to let him go out of his contract, I think Tommy Rees has a coordinator job somewhere in the NFL next year.
I think so too. I think he also probably has, honestly, head coaching opportunities in college football based off of his track record there. So I think Tommy Rees has a lot of options available to him. I don't think it's a lock that he's going to be here next year, unless, honestly, that Schwartz gets promoted.
Unless Schwartz wants, maybe Schwartz has his own staff he's drummed up. Somebody once told me years ago, and I truly do believe it. Every down to the quarterback's coach and the safeties coach, every guy has somewhere deep in their closet of skeletons their ideal staff that they would hire, and they keep lists, running lists. Now, do they always get who they want? No, because those guys are under contract. Teams can block that, all that kind of stuff. The thing that I like, though, is if the Browns, I think tomorrow's Tommy Rees is, to be honest with you, a sham interview as far as head coach. I think this is more of a, we want to get to know you better, Tommy. What, can you be a full-time coordinator for us for next year? Jim Schwartz, however, I think that's an actual head coaching interview. I really do believe that.
I agree.
I don't think there's any BS or wool being pulled over Jim's eyes. And Jim's also been in the league for a long time. If he truly didn't think that the Browns were serious about hiring him as a head coach, I don't think he'd even go through the process.
So you think it's basically the complete opposite of how we went about the 2019 coaching cycle? You think, because they basically interviewed Greg Williams for the sake of, hey, we kind of owe it to you.
Yeah.
Come on in for an interview, whereas they were really serious about Kitchens. So you think it's kind of reversed this time
I think
around?
Tommy Rees is getting the Greg Williams.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think Jim Schwartz is getting the Freddie Kitchens.
Okay.
But, again, I don't know that, right now, I guess the latest I read on Harbaugh is he's obviously super overwhelmed. At 30 minutes after he had, Schefter put this out there last night, 30 minutes after the Ravens had, ultimately relieved him of his coaching duties, his agent had already been contacted by 9 teams.
Right.
30 minutes after. So if the Browns want Harbaugh, and they're serious about it, first of all, they're going to have to pay him an exorbitant amount of money. Never a problem with Jimmy. That's the one thing Jimmy's good at as an owner. Writing the checks, it's a problem over there on the corner of Carnegie and Ontario. Alfred Lerner Way, Lou Groza Boulevard, checks are never a problem. We'll write them for people who don't work for us.
They also cannot let him leave the building, because I think if they let him in for an interview and they let him leave, I don't think he's coming back, by the way. He can't leave the building without a contract.
Well, Schefter said this today. Every team wants him. It's going to be ultimately his choice. Where does he want to go? And who does he even give the decency of giving an interview to? Everybody's put in a request. Now, my understanding is the process will go like this. He will sit down with his family the next couple days to determine, and his agent determine who he's going to give legitimate, actual entertainment of the idea to. And then he'll come up with a list. And so far, who I've heard he's most interested in is the Giants. And
yeah, that's what I've heard too. And I heard also that the Giants are the most interested in him. It sounds like basically the interview is a formality at this point, and basically one of them has to botch it.
Right. Now, I know the Giants interviewed Mike McCarthy today. That, to me, is interesting because everybody has this preconceived notion that John Harbaugh is a way better coach than Mike McCarthy. But I did a little research. I listened to a New York Giants podcast last night where the host, guy by the name of Tommy Lugauer, who I actually will listen to from time to time because I think he actually covers general NFL pretty well, he had said if you actually look at it, Harbaugh and McCarthy's numbers are extremely similar, with Harbaugh just being slightly better in the win percentage. They've basically done the same thing. So I don't understand why Mike McCarthy's getting all this disrespect and John Harbaugh is just being gloated over, though.
Can I be honest? I've got virtually zero interest in Mike McCarthy. And I have no reason behind it because I am advocating for Harbaugh, and based off of everything you said, which I do believe because I trust you in your research, they're essentially the same coach. I don't want McCarthy really at all here.
Is it because you have that preconceived notion in your head that John Harbaugh is just so much better, right?
Now, I wouldn't say it's a preconceived notion because they both have Super Bowl wins. They both have, when I've been watching whether it's the Packers or Cowboys for Mike McCarthy, they've had winning records. Whenever I've watched the Ravens, obviously they've had winning records for the majority of Harbaugh's run. So, I mean, they're not, even when you just look at it just from that stance or just from that glance, it's not really major. There's not a major difference between the two of them, but I just don't. I would feel more confident in a Harbaugh hire than a McCarthy hire. I just would.
Okay.
I have honest to God, I don't really have any like football knowledge to go behind that, like to analyze that in depth. It's just more of like a gut feeling type of thing where I feel like McCarthy would like crash and burn here. As most coaches do, quite frankly.
The one thing that I think that's interesting where Mike McCarthy's an offensive coach, offensive guy. Harbaugh,
special teams.
I think is unique that he came up in special teams.
Somebody told me once though, which I thought was a good point, when
special teams coordinators make the best head coaching candidates.
They make better ones than you would think, because a lot of people are so focused on we need a defensive-minded, offensive-minded, but special teams, they coach every position.
They coach everybody.
They coach every position outside of basically quarterback.
And think about their game duties. They handle probably the most outside of a head coach on game day.
Yeah, why do you think Prefer was the standing coach for Stefanski against the Steelers?
Yep. Why do you think that, there's special teams coordinators who oftentimes, like you just pointed out with Prefer, when a guy gets fired mid-season, who do they often turn to? The special teams coordinator.
Yeah, they have a familiarity with what?
Everybody.
Literally all of the positions. So I kind of like, and that opened my eyes. I want to say it might have been the Joe Judge cycle, I want to say. Because wasn't he a special teamer?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I think that was the one where I was like, they're really interviewing a special teams coach. And then I dug into it more. And I actually didn't even know that Harbaugh originally came from special teams until that coaching cycle. And I was like, oh, crap.
Do you remember it was the 2016 coaching cycle? I didn't think the Browns were going to get Hugh Jackson. The Giants let him fly to Cleveland, or the Browns wouldn't let him fly to New York, and that whole ordeal. Do you remember that I was very you may remember this, I was very dead set on Dave Tobe being the Browns' next head coach.
I don't remember that. I believe you, though. I remember, though, nobody listening is going to know this story, obviously, but I remember when they hired Hugh Jackson, it had sat in for a week, because I remember I was very adamant they have to get Hugh Jackson, and I had basically proclaimed that he would be the best head coach since 1999. And my Lord, I could not have been more wrong about that at all. But it is funny looking back at that stuff, man. We've just been through this cycle so many times, and it's been a while since we've done it. And I can't say I'm excited to do it again.
Honestly, it was kind of nice to have a reprieve for so long.
It was.
But I did have to laugh at Jimmy, through the media the other day. It's like, he goes, well, we'll go through this and we'll interview our people and then we'll eventually, he's like, y'all have covered enough of these before. And I was thinking to myself, I said, Tony Grossi and Mary Kay Cabot have covered the Browns since the 80s. I don't know if this is a fact, but this is just my opinion. I can't think of any other NFL beat writers who've probably covered more coaching searches than those two.
No, probably not.
I told you that, I know, off the air the other day, and I was just like, I can't think of anybody who's probably done it more. Like, of course these people know, Jimmy, how to handle it. The Browns have had the same beat writers for most of our lives, Yeah,
I'm really, honestly, the more we're talking about it, the more I'm really starting to panic about who they're going to hire. I know they put in a request for Todd Monken, and then I saw that,
which is ironic.
Freddie Kitchens is OC,
which is ironic because Freddie Kitchens did not like him, but I almost think, if I remember right, like Freddie Kitchens was kind of forced to hire him. He was Tampa's OC, but I don't know that I would, be interested in Monken as a head coach. But if let's say Tommy Rees left, I would be interested in bringing Monken back as an OC when Freddie Kitchens isn't a total dickbag to him and lets him actually do his deal, because Todd Monken's been a successful offensive coordinator at the pro and college level. He was good with the Buccaneers, not so good with the Browns because Freddie didn't let him do anything. Yeah. Very good at Georgia, won a national title there, good with the Ravens. This guy's a well-respected and qualified offensive coordinator who I wonder, again, if the Browns, if that's somebody they're interviewing, quote-unquote, for the head coaching job, but that's someone they might bring back as their OC once their staff gets set.
Yeah, I guess that's a potential possibility to happen for sure. I mean, when I saw that they were bringing Monken in, I'm not even going to lie to you, I did roll my eyes. I actually had a couple friends of mine that have reached out that are not Browns fans and were like, oh, if you guys could land Monken, that'd be a home run hire. And I was thinking to myself, would it really though? Like, I don't know. I think it's just like I had mentioned, prior. I think I'm just so pessimistic right now with whatever route that they go. I can tell you probably honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be happy with anybody that they hire. I think I'm just going to be like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and that's a fair approach to take, because now what would be interesting, and to your point, what would be interesting is I don't know I'm going to be thrilled about anybody either, because even Harbaugh, like, 63 years old, you start to wonder, has the game maybe passed him by a little bit? And, obviously, from what Ian Rappaport is hammering home on the NFL Network, like, it got pretty ugly between him and Lamar at the end. So, like, do the players, can he still command a locker room? Can he still be a leader of men? I think he can be, but it's hard not to have those questions in the back of your mind. Now, what would be interesting, and I think would be a total troll job by the Browns, let's say by the grace of God, and Jimmy Haslam says enough prayers and they do land John Harbaugh, and Jimmy opens a blank check for him and says, and then Harbaugh brings Monken back, and the 2026 Browns or the 2025 Ravens staff. That would be interesting.
It would be interesting. The one thing that I will say about Harbaugh that I greatly respect, and honestly the entire city of Baltimore should, is that he didn't really care who the personnel was. He would work around the personnel and adapt an offense to it. And he proved that by transitioning from Flacco to Lamar. Honestly, he did. Whether it's obviously he's not calling the offense, but he made sure that he had the staff in place that would work with him and make sure that they worked to his strengths. I feel like we see so many times with these Browns coaching staffs that try to fit square pegs into round holes, and it never fits. Like they tried to have Brandon Weeden, who was a deep ball quarterback, in a West Coast offense.
Right.
Like a lot of the times they just don't do things that make sense. Whereas John Harbaugh specifically, okay, Derrick Henry. Not that it's hard to adapt an offense to Derrick Henry, but downhill runner, okay, we're going to run a lot of inside zones this time. Whereas a lot of times they were doing sweeps or Lamar Jackson quarterback sweeps. Now it's like, okay, we've got a downhill runner, now we can attack downhill. He adapts his offense to his players, and I think that's something that you got to respect.
Well, and I also think this too. I give Harbaugh credit. He went through, some because they got hired by other people, some because it just wasn't working. He always had a lot of turnover on his staff. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. A lot of people were like, well, that's probably not good. But he constantly adapted to who his personnel was, like you just pointed out. And that involved, I think I read somewhere over his 18 years in Baltimore, I believe he had like 9 or 10 different offensive coordinators and like 9 or 10 different.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which, again, some of those guys got hired for other jobs too, though. Some of them Harbaugh didn't work out. He went in there and fired them. So, like, my thing is, if he does come to the Browns again, they're going to have to write a bigger check. And I also think it could diminish the role of Andrew Berry a little bit, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, I'll pack his bags for him.
Not in the sense that I don't think Harbaugh would like.
No, but I think he's the only candidate out there that, and I'll give credit to my brother Mike on this because he had texted me this. I think he's the only candidate on the market right now that has enough clout to overpower Andrew Berry in any decision making.
I'm surprised, honestly, you're speaking so negatively of Andrew Berry. I thought you would come in here and have all good things to say after his press conference the other day.
What, just because he's not committing to a quarterback for 2026?
That's right.
It's about the only good thing he's done in the last 2 years.
Well, no, we just went over it. His last year's been great. Jimmy laid it out for you. No, I thought that would make you thrilled because they point blank them asked him if Shedeur was the starter, and he said, I can't commit to that.
If Shedeur's not the starter next year, is he a Cleveland Brown?
I don't know. I think it depends on what transpires, who ends up being this coaching staff, what's going on. Like it's too early. It's too early to say. And I know that's a cop-out answer, but I think it's too early to say.
Okay. That's fair.
I don't know. I don't know. The only quarterback, how about I put it this way? The only quarterback I'm going to guarantee you is here next year is 4, and that's not because of talent. That's because of financial reasons.
I actually think Dylan Gabriel is pretty close to being a lock to being on this team next year, and I don't think that's me being a Dylan defender either. I just think with where the draft capital is and what he did this past year, I think he proved that he can be a backup quarterback in the league.
I think if somebody would trade Dylan, if somebody would offer a 7th for Dylan Gabriel, they would send him on his merry way.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to.
But you never know.
Yeah.
Too early. All right, enough about these bad teams that are all eliminated and stink.
Yeah, we spent an hour on them.
Let's talk about quickly run through the playoff matchups of the teams that are still playing.
Yes.
So I guess we'll start in the order of the television schedule.
Yeah, so we got the 5-seed Rams going into Carolina. I actually don't know what the spread of that game is.
So Rams are 10.5-point road favorites.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to pick the Rams to win. I'm going to pick the Panthers to cover though. The Panthers have played tough this year, man. They really have. They've really come out of nowhere. I know they won their division at 8-9, so they're by no means world beaters, but they've been a competitive 8-9. I like the Panthers to cover, Rams to win though.
Excuse me, I actually agree with you. I mean, I hate that for show's sake, but it's true. I like the Rams to win. I like the Panthers to cover. The only thing that I can have a defensive, and it just came to my mind of Baker Mayfield, is that's 2 straight years he lost his coordinator because he had Dave Canales, who he did great work with.
Yeah.
Panthers head coach, and then Liam Cohen, who's obviously having a good year in Jacksonville. All right, the oldest rivalry in NFL history is going to come for a 3rd time this season and back in the playoffs. That is the Packers and the Bears. A rivalry older than all 3 of us put together in this room.
Yeah.
And the Packers, 1.5-point road favorites, 7 versus 2. If I'm a Bears fan, I'm pissed off about that spread.
Yeah, here, this is what I'm going to say about this game, okay? This game reminds me a lot of when the Browns had to go into Pittsburgh in 2020. They were going up against Big Brother. I know it's a little bit different because the Packers are traveling to Chicago, but the Browns were going up against Big Brother and the Steelers, who had beaten their ass for 20 years straight, basically, right? Packers have done a very similar thing to the Bears over the last 20 years. I think the Packers are going to go into Soldier Field, and I think the Bears are coming out with a win. I
like the Bears to cover the plus.
To bear down.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Bears to cover the plus 1.5. I don't see, I think the Packers have kind of fallen off of late, and I know that's true. But the Packers were kind of up and down all year, and there's some smoke around. If they lose this game, LaFleur could be out.
If LaFleur's out, I mean, the Browns, that's another candidate I like the Browns to at least inquire on.
Okay. Interesting. And by the way,
I just think that Parsons' injury hurts their defense so much. And I mean, we've seen the fall off of the Packers since that injury. We really have. I think it's such a significant impact.
Jordan Love being hurt. Excuse me.
Yeah, and Jordan Love for sure. Absolutely. I just think the Bears, man, they've been consistent enough all year. I like the Bears in this one, dude. I really do.
So that's Saturday, 8:15 on Prime. Sunday, 1 o'clock. The Buffalo Bills, the 6th seed, heading to the 13-4 Jacksonville Jaguars. Unbelievable that they're that good. Liam Cohen, I think, will probably win Coach of the Year, I would imagine.
Probably.
Listen, the Bills are actually still favorited. I think Vegas has this one right. I know this is probably the worst roster Josh has ever taken into the playoffs with him. I also, however, think this is Josh's best chance to win a Super Bowl. And I know that doesn't make any sense because you're saying, well, wait a minute, he's bringing in his worst roster. How is this his best chance?
Doesn't have to face the Chiefs.
Look who's not there.
Doesn't
Lamar,
have to face Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes. By the way, Lamar stinks in the playoffs anyway. That's not here nor there. Buffalo's 1.5-point favorites. I like them to cover and win.
I like the Bills.
And I think they know the pressure's on them. Sorry, because I told you McDermott's going to be out if they don't win this game.
I like the Bills to win this one too. I like them to cover as well, Jerome. I don't trust Jacksonville enough. I know that Trevor Lawrence has been playing phenomenal football over the last month. I just don't trust him come playoff time. And I think the Jags are, honestly, I'm not believers in them. I don't think they're actually contenders. I think they're pretenders. I think they're in a horrible, horrible division, which obviously the Texans are in the playoffs too, which we'll get there. But I like the Bills. I like the Bills to get to the Super Bowl this year too.
All right. Philadelphia, the 4th seed, they won the NFC East. The least competitive NFC East I remember in years. That's always a damn good division. Philly, 4.5 points, home favorites against San Francisco coming in on the road, who just lost that big game to Seattle for the number 1 overall seed. Philly, there's something not right in Philly this year. I heard an executive say the other day, who was off the record, to The Athletic, quote, Philly is the most dysfunctional behind the scenes but yet successful organization. And I think there's something to be said for that. I like San Francisco on the road. I like them plus 4.5, and I actually like them outright.
I'm gonna roll right with you, buddy. I actually like San Francisco in this one too.
Something ain't right in Philly.
Something ain't right in Philly. I know Jalen Hurts obviously won the Super Bowl last year. I'm still not a true believer in him. I know that sounds ridiculous considering he has a Super Bowl win. And then obviously the A.J. Brown saga, the stuff behind the scenes that you just alluded to. I don't trust the Eagles. And then the 49ers are here every year. Shanahan and the Niners are here every year. So I like the Niners in this one. I do.
All right. How about the team who played the worst schedule this week? A lot of people, are you believers? The coach is good. We know that. That's the New England Patriots back in the playoffs. The 2 seed hosting Jim Harbaugh, the other Harbaugh brother, and his 11-6 Chargers. AFC was damn good this year. The 7 seed was 11-6. How about that?
Yeah, seriously.
New England, 3.5 point favorites. I actually like the Chargers to cover but not win here. I like the Chargers plus the 3.5. I don't think they win outright, though.
I think the Chargers are going to cover, and I do think that they're actually going to win outright. I just think the Patriots are too young. I think
they did play the worst schedule out of 32 teams in the league, and that's something to be said for that.
They played a horrible schedule. Now, granted, Drake May was otherworldly this year. He's, I believe, the front runner for MVP right now, although I will say I do think it should go to Stafford, quite honestly. But yeah, I like the Chargers a lot, man. I love Herbert. I love that Hampton's back for him. They've got a great receiving core, honestly, with Lad McConkey. Quentin Johnston's come on, and then Keenan Allen's there still. Their offensive line hasn't been bad, and honestly, their defense has come around a little bit too. So I like the Chargers in this one to cover and win.
Here's the thing about the Chargers, and this is true.
They're pretenders typically.
Justin Herbert doesn't win this. There's some serious questions. There's the Lamar Jackson questions about him because he has never gotten it done in the postseason, ever.
Right, and then they choked that lead against the Jaguars a few years ago.
Oh, sure, they blew the biggest playoff lead in franchise history. Now, obviously, different coach, different staff.
Right.
But I think, the Justin Herbert overrated questions, those are going to start coming to fruition majorly, even if and I get it, they're the 7 and they're going against the 2, but you're a veteran team with a veteran coach. If Justin Herbert's all he's cracked up to be, he should be able to go into Foxborough and beat them guys.
Yeah, and also in the same breath, though, if Drake May's the MVP, he should go out there and win this game too. So I think this one's going to be a very interesting game. I do like the Chargers in it, though.
All right, good counter. And then finally, is there any team that's luckier in the NFL than the Pittsburgh Steelers? They won the division based off Tyler Loop. His right foot not working, and Chris Boswell's didn't either, and they still luck out.
Yep.
And they get it done. And they host the Texans. And first of all, let's start with something that's just weird as hell. The Texans have never in their franchise's history been in the playoffs without playing that 4:30 Saturday game. The Texans playing on Monday Night Football in the playoffs is weird to me. Texans 3-point favorites, 3-point road favorites, laying 3 at Acrisure Stadium. I don't even think I'm being biased here. Houston's defense is incredible. I like the Texans by double digits here. And Mike Tomlin, the first round of the playoffs, I mean, who's betting on him?
Yeah, no, this one's interesting because I think the Steelers have a legit chance in this one. I just don't know, to your point, Jerome, the Texans' defense is otherworldly. It's amazing.
I don't know how Rodgers is getting away from that pass rush. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, them boys are hungry dogs, man.
Well, if they have the game plan they had against the Browns, they'll be completely content with a loss as long as there's no sack.
Right. I mean, the thing is, yeah, you go that hard at one guy, though. And it even showed up in that Browns game plan. Alex Wright had a sack and a half.
Yeah.
If you go that hard at Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter is going to kill you. You go that hard at Danielle Hunter, vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't think the Steelers have what it takes. And also, Rodgers... Yeah, he made some throws last week. He definitely did, and he still can when in the fourth quarter, that's when he's at his absolute best. Like,
Yeah.
But like, I don't know how well he's able to hold up against that pass rush for a whole game. And by the time that I think he can make some of those throws, he's going to be too beaten up. Texans by 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Texans. What was the spread?
They're laying 3. They're
laying
3-point favorites on the road.
On the road.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll pick them to cover. I'm honestly not widely confident in that, just because I do think the Steelers can hang around.
Mike Tomlin ends his drought.
No, I don't think he's going to end the drought. I do think it's going to be a close game, though. I don't see the Texans winning by double digits. I think the Steelers are going to put up, Acrisure Stadium can be a tough place to play, man. It really can be. When those towels are waving, it can be a tough place to play. So if the Texans go in there and they're not ready for it, I could see the Steelers, honestly. I think it's more likely, I think there's more of a likelihood, that the Steelers rout the Texans than the Texans rout the Steelers. I just don't think either side's likely, quite frankly. So I'm going to pick the Texans to cover and win. I think it's going to be a good game, though. I'm looking forward to that one Monday night.
Absolutely. All right, well, we got college playoffs, too. Semifinals tomorrow night at the Verbo Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. The number 10 Miami Hurricanes will be playing the number 6 Ole Miss Rebels, both coming off big semifinal or quarterfinal wins. And obviously, we didn't have much time to get into the Miami beating Ohio State. Simple thoughts. Congratulations to them on all their success. They're there. And I was disappointed. I have no other way to put it. We don't have time to get into all that. We got to move on with what's forward. And unfortunately, the Buckeyes are in the past. Miami's 3.5-point favorites here. Miami has beaten 2 really top dogs and kind of almost blue bloods of college football in Ohio State and Texas A&M. We were dead wrong on this panel last week. None of us were even close to being right. And I love Ole Miss. I love Trinidad Chambliss. I've been hooting and hollering about him for about a week now. I don't know, man. There's something special brewing in South Florida, though. I like Ole Miss to cover the plus 3.5, but I think I'm going to have to take the Canes, man.
You're going to have to take the Canes to win?
Yeah. But
okay.
Ole Miss to cover.
Okay, you know what? I'll counter. I'll go Ole Miss to win.
I love it. And I hope you're right.
I do. I hope I am too, honestly, because I honestly just want Lane Kiffin to be at home watching his team in the national championship game with him not there.
I think that'd be sweet.
That's what I want. So I'll go Ole Miss. I'll counter you with it.
Hot take, though, real quick, and we'll get into much more draft stuff down the road. Kevin loves that stuff.
Ooh.
So he gets excited just even hear me say the word draft. Yeah. Man, is it a hot take for me to say if he decides to come out, Trinidad Chambliss is the second best quarterback in this draft?
That's probably a little premature to say.
All right, fair enough.
I don't think he's going to come out, by the way.
I don't think he is either. But, boy, I mean, I got to tell you, and this is why I want Ole Miss to win. Obviously, the Lane stuff, you hit on it. But, like, this dude was playing at Ferris State last year, and he's in the college football semifinals and balling.
Yeah, he is.
At it, dude.
Balling on a budget.
You gotta respect and love what Trinidad Chambliss is doing.
Absolutely, you have to. Yeah, I'll go Rebels. You got the Hurricanes, huh?
Yeah. And then
all right.
Friday night, Kevin's boy absolutely routed Alabama. We were wrong on that, too.
Yep.
We've
been wrong a lot.
Routes the Alabama Crimson Tide. Ty Simpson declared today, by the way. Random, I know. Oregon and Dante Moore, who did not impress me at all, looking from a draft point of view. I'm trying to be open-minded. I love Shador, but I'm trying to be open-minded. Take a look at some of these kids, see what's out there. I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm trying.
Sure.
And anywho, Indiana's 3.5-point favorites against Oregon. Obviously, Indiana went and won outright at Oregon on the road in Eugene earlier this year. I mean, this game's going to be in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl. I feel like there's going to be more Hoosier fans than Duck fans just because of where the teams are located in the country. I got to say, it's hard to beat a team twice, but I think it's hard not to bet against Cignetti and
the Hoosiers.
Hoosiers. As Cignetti likes to do.
Yeah. Listen, I'm right there with you, buddy. It's very hard to beat a team twice in 1 year, but if there's any team to do it, it's going to be one with the Heisman Trophy winner and an elite defense. So I'm going to pick the Hoosiers in this one. It is going to be interesting because it is right now the favorite to go number 1 in the draft versus the favorite to go number 2 in the draft. This is basically what everybody's kind of been preparing themselves for, was this matchup again. And I am glad that we're getting it so that we can see these two go head-to-head again. I'm going to go with the Hoosiers, though, and I think the Hoosiers roll past whoever they face in the championship. I think you're looking at the Hoosiers as your college football champions this year.
If he wasn't so old, I think there'd be more NFL draft interest in Carson Beck, but he just peaks and valleys too much. But either way, I think besides Trinidad Chambliss, who obviously I'm super high on, I think he's going to go back to Ole Miss. And he said he is, actually. I think he officially made that clear this week. But I think the other three, Dante Moore, we don't know what he's doing yet. But if they wanted to, hypothetically, let's say all 4 of these quarterbacks would be drafted this year, I think, if they were coming out. Beck's going to be late, but I think he'll still.
I think he's going to be like a Ewers type of guy.
Yeah, which Ewers played well, by the way.
Yeah.
He at the end of the year also played a little bit at Ohio State, so he's got a little bit of that magic pixie dust.
You guys do whatever you can to claim players. Still hear people claiming Joe Burrow in this town.
So anyway, that's the college football. You got the Miami Ole Miss game tomorrow night. This will come out tomorrow on Thursday, so that'll come out. So you start with CSR when you get off of work, you make a little dinner, and then you watch the playoff game.
Yeah, or you can even start your morning with a little bit of CSR.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then Friday, you have the Peach Bowl where Kevin's man will be trying to get
Fernando
the
Mendoza
national title. And again, and then Saturday and Sunday, you got all the pro games. So you got a lot of football. And that's why we did a football-heavy show tonight, and we didn't cover anything else. But a lot going on in the football world, on and off the field. So that'll just about do it for us. So like I said, you'll be able to keep up with the Browns coaching updates. And it is weird that we're doing one of these again, but that's the reality of the situation, and it is what it is.
Gotta talk about it.
Obviously, you got the playoffs Thursday and Friday, and then the pro football comes at you Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So for football junkies like Kevin and myself, the next few days look to be all right.
Going to be a little busy.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, make sure to follow this podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and I believe as well on TikTok. And then this podcast is available on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube if you want to watch along with us for the video stream as well. Thanks again for listening, and we're glad to be doing the first CSR podcast of 2026. I think that's just about it.
I think so.
All right. Well, thanks, Derek, behind the glass over there. Kevin, thank you. And for Kevin, Jerome, and Derek, have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
Go Browns.